David Reynolds, a weary software engineer, found himself navigating the desolate highway late at night, his tired eyes fixed on the road ahead. The world outside his car was enveloped in darkness, broken only by the faint glow of his headlights. The monotonous hum of the engine provided a rhythmic backdrop to his thoughts. As he drove, the solitary stretch of road seemed to stretch endlessly into the night. The air carried a chilling breeze, causing the shiver to run down David's spine. Thoughts of reaching his destination consumed him, the weariness pulling at his every muscle. Suddenly, his eyes caught a flicker of movement to the side. David's gaze darted to the right, where a parked truck stood like a lonely sentinel. Intrigued by the unexpected sight, he eased his foot off the gas pedal and allowed his car to decelerate. As David approached, he noticed a figure, barely discernible in the dim light, standing beside the truck. The silhouette of an old man emerged, hunched and frail, as he waved desperately for assistance. The wrinkles etched on his face spoke of a life weathered by time, while his eyes, filled with a mix of fear and hope, pleaded for salvation. A wave of uncertainty washed over David. He glanced at his watch, his mind racing with thoughts of the risks of stopping on a desolate highway at such an hour. Yet something tugged at his heartstrings, an innate sense of compassion that refused to be ignored. With a deep breath, David made a decision. He pulled his car to a stop, its headlights illuminating the scene before him. The old man's eyes widened with gratitude as David stepped out, his footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. Approaching the old man cautiously, David took in the surroundings, his senses heightened by a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The wind whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves, as if cautioning him of unseen dangers lurking in the darkness. Ezekiel, as the old man introduced himself, explained with trembling words the dire circumstances that had befallen his fellow truck driver. His voice quivered with urgency, emphasizing the preciousness of time in their struggle for survival. The desperation in Ezekiel's voice struck a chord within David, pulling him further into this enigmatic web of tragedy. As he listened to Ezekiel's plea for help, David's heart wrestled with conflicting emotions. The rational part of his mind warned him of the potential dangers that lay ahead, while his compassionate nature urged him to offer a helping hand to a stranger in need. In that moment, the weight of responsibility settled upon David's shoulders. He knew the decision he was about to make could have far-reaching consequences. Swallowing his doubts, he mustered the courage to embark on a path unknown, driven by empathy and a sense of duty. With a nod of determination, David agreed to assist Ezekiel, setting in motion a chain of events that would thrust him into a terrifying journey through the heart of darkness. David stood at the edge of uncertainty, his gaze fixed on Ezekiel, who appeared both desperate and hopeful. The darkness seemed to encroach upon them, amplifying the weight of David's decision. Time stood still as he wrestled with his own reservations, contemplating the risks of aiding a stranger in the dead of night. Ezekiel's eyes pleaded with David, silently urging him to embrace compassion over caution. The old man's voice trembled as he recounted the horrors of recent accident of his truck that had befallen his fellow truck driver, emphasizing the urgency of their situation. He explained that his fellow driver is in an emergency situation and needs someone's help who can bring him to the nearby hospital. Every word resonated with a desperate plea for a chance at salvation. The howl of the wind pierced the silence, whispering warnings of the dangers that lay hidden within the shadows. David's rational mind fought against his empathetic heart, casting doubt upon his resolve. He couldn't ignore the nagging thoughts that questioned Ezekiel's motives and the risks that awaited him. Yet, as David stared into Ezekiel's weathered face, lines etched by time and sorrow, he saw a glimpse of genuine desperation. A flicker of vulnerability crossed the old man's eyes, eroding David's skepticism. He couldn't dismiss the possibility that lives hung in the balance, dependent upon his choice. In that fleeting moment, a surge of courage coursed through David's veins. He made a silent vow to himself, determined to act upon the noblest parts of his character. With a nod, he conveyed his willingness to aid Ezekiel and his injured fellow driver in their race against time. The weight of his decision settled upon David's shoulders, merging with the somber night. The darkness seemed to swirl around them, mirroring the trepidation in his heart. Yet the glimmer of hope in Ezekiel's eyes ignited a flame within him, one that pushed aside the fear and propelled him forward. Together, David and Ezekiel walked towards the truck, their footsteps crunching on the gravel road. Every step resonated with uncertainty, the fear of the unknown intertwined with the possibility of salvation. The moon cast an ethereal glow upon their path, illuminating their journey into the depths of the night. As they drew nearer to the truck, parked like a silent sentinel on the desolate highway, David's senses sharpened. The rustling of leaves in the wind took on an eerie quality, as if nature itself whispered warnings of the dangers that lay ahead. Doubt lingered in the air, an intangible presence that nipped at David's heels. With each passing moment, the mystery deepened, leaving David to question the veracity of Ezekiel's claims. A seed of doubt sprouted within him, entangling his thoughts in a web of suspicion. The absence of the fellow truck driver in the driver's seat only added fuel to the fire of uncertainty. The old man explained that his fellow driver is in faint condition, and he is fighting for his life in the back container of the truck. Yet, as they reached back side of the truck, David's resolve wavered but did not break. He reminded himself of the importance of empathy, of extending a helping hand to those in need. The consequences of his decision loomed large, but the chance to make a difference outweighed the risks that surrounded them. David's apprehension grew as he stood at the back side of the truck, its imposing presence sending a chill down his spine. He couldn't ignore the lingering doubt that gnawed at him, fueled by the absence of the fellow truck driver in the driver's seat. Still, he pressed on, his empathy guiding his every step. Ezekiel, sensing David's hesitation, turned towards him, his weathered face etched with a mixture of gratitude and something else, something unsettling. His eyes gleamed with an unnatural hunger, a glimpse of which sent a shiver down David's spine. A tinge of unease crept into his thoughts, but it was too late to turn back now. Steeling himself, David tried to look into the truck, his senses immediately assaulted by a jumble of scents and the sight of crates and tools scattered haphazardly. The confined space seemed to swallow the remnants of his courage as shadows danced ominously in the dim light. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, David's gaze landed on a door at the rear of the container. It stood before him like a portal to the unknown, beckoning him further into the heart of this enigmatic journey. With each step, the weight of his decision settled heavier upon his shoulders. The air thickened with tension, every breath a reminder of the stakes at hand. David's mind raced, questioning the true nature of the situation, while his instincts screamed at him to proceed with caution. With a deep breath, David pushed open the door, revealing a sight that would forever haunt his nightmares. Ezekiel, with a mix of gratitude and urgency, led David inside the container of the truck. The moonlight cast eerie shadows on the desolate highway, heightening the sense of foreboding that enveloped them. Every rustle in the wind seemed to whisper secrets of the night, urging David to remain vigilant. The creaking of metal echoed through the air as they approached deep inside the truck's container. David's senses heightened, his heart pounding in his chest like a drumbeat of uncertainty as he realized that there is no fellow driver in the container of the truck. He realized for a fleeting moment that Ezekiel has lied to him about his fellow driver, and it was his trap to bring me inside the container of the truck. The sight of a blood-soaked stretcher, a chilling testament to the horrors that had unfolded within the truck's hidden depths. The truth was laid bare before him. Ezekiel had not been entirely forthcoming. A wave of terror washed over David, threatening to drown him in the abyss of his own naivety. The innocent old man he had once believed in was merely a facade, hiding a malevolence that now consumed the air. Panic surged within him, urging him to escape this macabre trap before it was too late. David's heart pounded in his chest as he stood frozen, his eyes locked on the blood-soaked stretcher within the truck's dark confines. The revelation of Ezekiel's deception sent shockwaves of fear through his body, paralyzing him momentarily. The truth had been obscured by the old man's desperate facade, and now David found himself ensnared in a web of horror. Ezekiel's once innocent demeanor melted away, replaced by a sinister grin that stretched across his face. The moonlight cast an eerie glow upon his visage, illuminating his true nature, a creature of the night, a zombie seeking to satisfy an insatiable hunger for human flesh. The zombie told David that it was his plan to bring him inside the truck container, and now he and his family would enjoy his delicious flesh. The zombie stepped outside the truck quickly and locked the David inside the container of truck. He started driving the truck towards deep inside the woods, having David locked in the container of truck. After a few minutes, he stopped the truck near an old abandoned wooden cabin deep inside the woods where his family, full of scary zombies, was awaiting him. The realization crashed upon David like a tidal wave, shattering any remaining illusions he held. The air thickened with an acrid stench as he struggled to comprehend the depth of his predicament. Fear gripped him, threatening to pull him under, but a flicker of survival instinct ignited within him. Without hesitation, David lunged for the small container of petrol he had noticed earlier. His fingers closed around it, his mind racing to formulate a plan of escape. The weight of the petrol container felt oddly reassuring, a tangible weapon against the horrors that surrounded him. As he prepared himself for what lay ahead, the sound of shuffling footsteps reached his ears. The zombies, Ezekiel's family, closed in on the truck, their eerie moans echoing through the night. Time seemed to stretch, each moment fraught with tension and the ever-present threat of imminent doom. With a deep breath, David summoned his remaining courage and flung open the In a desperate act of self-preservation, David doused the approaching zombies with petrol, the liquid cascading over their decaying flesh. The flicker of a lighter transformed into a raging inferno as flames engulfed the creatures, their unearthly screams piercing the silence of the forest. Seizing the opportunity, David fought against the terror that threatened to consume him. He broke free from the truck, his legs carrying him through the dense underbrush of the forest, each step fueled by adrenaline and the raw instinct to survive. As he ran, branches clawed at his skin, a constant reminder of the nightmarish reality he had encountered. Behind him, the crackling of fire mingled with the distant cries of the burning zombies. It was a symphony of horror, a reminder that he had narrowly escaped the clutches of the undead. Exhausted and shaken, David emerged from the depths of the forest, his breath ragged and his body drenched in sweat. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, David emerged from the wilderness and found himself on the outskirts of a small town. Heaving a sigh of relief, he approached the first passerby, his voice trembling as he recounted the horrors he had experienced. The townsfolk listened in disbelief, their eyes widening with each detail of his harrowing ordeal. They offered their sympathy and reassurance, assuring David that he was safe now. But deep down, he knew that the scars left by that fateful encounter would forever mark his soul.